You're very welcome to the Firm and Fast Golf Podcast. I'm your host, Shane Derby. Today we welcome back Jasper Miners from Evalu18 as our second ever returning guest. His last appearance was on episode 8 back in March 2022. Since then we've got to know each other pretty well. So this chat is a little more informal than usual. Two mates having a chat. We hope you enjoy eavesdropping. Unfortunately, some of the audio is a little spotty thanks to some gremlins in the works. I must apologise in advance, and hopefully it does not detract from your enjoyment too much. Finally, before we get going, I have a wee favour to ask. Actual posted reviews are a key component for the growth of any podcast, and Firm and Fast is no different. If you like what you hear, I would really appreciate if you would consider taking the time to write a review and post it through your preferred podcast service, such as iTunes or Spotify. Many thanks for continuing to listen. Once this is edited, I'm officially off on my holidays. As a wise man once said en route to the Melbourne Sandbelt, you can't beat a golf holiday. Go easy.
Hey, there we are.
This is a little bit more freestyle than we did the last time, so please forgive me.
It's all right.
I'm on holidays. I always feel like we should be recording all the conversations I have with you because it usually is a very enjoyable geek out, and there's definitely, I know Stephen Proctor's listening, and I may even actually not bother telling you we're starting. We could just start.
Let's do it.
So let's freestyle it. What are you drinking?
This is Karoon.
Is that alcoholic or non-alcoholic?
Which is alcoholic. It's Friday and it's just afternoon, so we're in the clear.
I'm on holidays, so it's all good.
Okay.
Well, I was just thinking, it's the things I think about. It's a bit odd, the late Queen Elizabeth described 1992 as her annus horribilis. I think really your last 12 months or slightly longer has been an annus mirabilis. So this is really, I guess, in honor of that annus mirabilis. We last spoke, obviously recorded on episode 8, which was in March 2022. It's hard to believe this is episode 24.
Yeah, and there's it doesn't seem like that long ago, but there's definitely a lot of water under that bridge.
Yeah.
So no, it's been a good run. It has been a good run.
So I think, as I said, it's a bit more freestyle than usual. We kind of know the direction we're going in, and no doubt we'll fall down many a hole on the way. But obviously, I can't ask the last 2 questions to you because I've already done that. So in respect of that, I think it's probably useful to do a bit of a news round. And, I'm foregoing a presentation at Royal Dublin for a young man I know very well, a guy called Max Kennedy, who has just won the North of Ireland Stroke Play Championship at Planleyboy earlier this week. He had a 6-hole playoff, would you believe, to beat his opponent, who was a dude called, if I just look here, Clean's Jamie Butler. They were going hard at it for probably the bones of an hour plus. Max also won his first collegiate event in the States. He's on a scholarship to Louisville. He won the Aggie International back and also had 5 or 6 top 10s in 23. So he's looking to knock hard on that Walker Cup door. So best of luck to him. I first came across Max, sort of friendly with his folks and his family. I remember years ago, it's probably 8 years ago, Max was quite a small kid, but pitched and put it like a demon. He still pitches and puts like a demon. But I remember we have a Moncrief Cup, which is an annual event, 36-holer. He stepped up on the 7th, which is a 220-yard par 3, as you know, off the back sticks. And he goes, just going to hit a little driver. And he hits it into 2 feet. So that's the sort of kid you're dealing with. He's blossomed since then. And best of luck to him. So he's getting his just rewards at 5:30 this evening. Unfortunately, I'm going to miss it. But I guess we'll get to St. George's Hill on that exciting announcement that you had with Brian and Clyde and Angela and Chris in due course. But I wanted to just mention that I had an opportunity to see the new Portmarnock links. They're twice over the past six weeks. The director of golf, Paul McKenney, brought me out to have a look around 6 weeks ago. I know the site pretty well because I was a member for a while. I literally didn't know where I was. They've done that much remodeling. It's different. There is a podcast coming up. Paul has agreed to do one with Jeff Lynch, the designer, and Fintan Brennan, who's the longtime superintendent. So keep an eye out for that. In terms of new content, obviously Portal Links. Next up will be Richard Pennell, who's got some exciting announcements himself. You are the first of the returning guests. Mike Clayton has agreed to come on again, so that's great. And apropos my holiday, I'm off to the Netherlands on Sunday. So there's going to be a podcast on the Netherlands trip as well. So Jasper, tell us a bit about your recent announcement.
So we're quite excited to be working with a golf club of note, especially in architectural circles, and that's the St. George's Hill Golf Club in Webridge, Surrey. So the London neighbourhood, the Surrey Sandbelt. So that is a collaboration with Renaissance Golf Design, and Brian Schneider is the lead consulting golf course architect. Along with that, we've got Angela Mosier, who is currently working in Pinehurst on Pinehurst 10 with Tom Doak. Then we've also got Clyde Johnson, so Cunning Golf Design. He's currently working on Castle Stewart 2, the Cabot property up north in Scotland, with Chris Haspel, who is also our consulting agronomist. So together there's Brian, Angela, Clyde, Chris, and myself, all bringing our various backgrounds to this team, and then linked up to kind of put a team together to work with St. George's Hill. So that's the big news, and we're really excited about the prospect for being able to work with the club.
I know it's early days, and you probably can't say very much for obvious reasons, but is there anything you can tell us?
So the golf club knows that it's got a very special golf course. They also understand the importance of Harry Colt's contribution to golf course architecture, and really St. George's Hill was that great golf architect at the height of his powers. So they understand what they have, and they basically feel as though it's an obligation. In the press release, the sentiment was that they know that they're in possession of, or custodians of, probably better put, a masterpiece. And we feel the same way. And so at the moment, we're doing our due diligence. Effectively at the moment, we are learning as much as we possibly can, not only about the golf course, but the estate, the history, the entire site itself, so that whenever we move forward, whether that's planning and beyond, that we make sure that we've taken everything into account.
As I was joking with you last week, you were posting on Twitter in that you were up ladders and looking in dustbins and under water tanks and whatnot. How exhaustive has the search been on the property in terms of trying to find additional resources?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So when it comes to historical research, kind of our starting point is the digitized online databases. Beyond that, we would look at the various collections, whether institutional or personal, that are held with golfing publications in hard copy. So literally going to various archives that we found in and around London, private homes, manor houses, that type of thing, that have these bound volumes, to find anything that we can. Most of the time you find nothing, but it's still part and parcel of doing the job properly. We also have gone to various, even seed merchants, local planning offices to look at the submitted documents for the estate. There's been biographies written about various individuals that both planned and developed the estate. So we've looked at the collective historical archives for those. Even on site, obviously, you're looking in every nook and cranny, looking through the on-site libraries. We just finished a little project where, quite a big project where we've read every single minute book from beginning till end to make sure that any information that's relative to the course is found. So it's quite interesting. You find things out like, originally what colors the flags were, and the decisions that were made and things like that have made it into the minute book. So it's quite exciting. It was quite interesting when they went from basically horses to tractors, the discussion about what to do with the horses or how long they should keep them. And all of that's been recorded. Now, does that really influence what we would suggest? Or it doesn't. But what it does give you is you start to get a flavor for the club itself, its history, the fabric of the club, what makes the club what it is today and where it's come from, and hopefully where it wants to go. But all of those things, it just kind of helps you understand intimately the golf club, the golf course, and where it's come from and where it is today. And once you get those pieces together, then hopefully that helps you make decisions about where they want to go moving forward.
I suppose it probably ticks at least 3 boxes. So culture, at least initially, identity in terms of how they saw themselves, and actually that probably all feeds into the sense of place in Weybridge.
That's a very good way to put it. I mean, I think the other thing too is that once you understand where a club has come from, and this is not just with regards to St. George's Hill, but it could be any golf club. Once you could substantiate history, it gives it an authenticity and a sincerity that you cannot purchase or acquire. Those are things that they tell a story, they give a narrative, and if a club is willing to embrace those things, it's such an identifying mark and a differentiator from any other club. One of the things we came up with too, with in particular with St. George's Hill, was even just a list of the honorary members that they had at the club, and it was names like Colt, Sir Guy Campbell, Joyce Weatherid, so kind of the who's who of the golden age of golf course architecture, and top tier players were there. So it's an amazing thing to kind of go back, and also what's amazing is that someone like me, we get quite excited about these types of things, and then when you find them, you can share them with individuals at the club, and when they find them exciting too, that's quite satisfying, because you're almost helping them to understand the club that they know and they love and they revere, in a new lens as well, to see it from a new angle. So yeah, it's a very rewarding pursuit, and again, that's just laying the foundation for us to kind of get our heads around what is actually there, before we start trying to make suggestions about what we do moving forward. So at this point, it's information gathering, and we're just doing exhaustive research to try and get to know both the club and the course as intimately as possible. So that's where we're at.
So you're finding the truth, if you like. I mean, some people. I was asked recently, actually, if I like poetry. I said I do, and the person then said, "Well, poetry is the truth, and some people don't like the truth." So warts and all, I suppose it's important to understand and expose the true story of everyone's particular mud heap.
Yeah, and again, this is not just particular to St. George's Hill. I think any restoration project or renovation project or any work, and again, this is not with regards to St. George's Hill, but just a generic statement, is there's been individuals that put blood, sweat, and tears into a lot of these projects, and even if the decision was to do something different than what had been done previously, you almost owe it to those individuals to at least do due diligence. And I think what you'll find is that a lot of times, you know, whether that is here in the UK or abroad, especially America or perhaps Canada even, sometimes after you've done things that can't be undone, then you find out exactly what you had. And unfortunately, history doesn't always well view those types of decisions in the most favorable light. So I think when it comes to any work that's done on any golf course, whether that is restoration, renovation, or complete new build, it just shows a bit of respect for what's come before. And I think that's something that we're very cognizant of as a team, especially when you know you're dealing with something special, really special. That you do have to go to that extra level to make sure that you really know what you're doing and why you're doing it before you do anything at all.
Well, in conclusion on this particular question, obviously our friend Adam Lawrence has now proven there are 422 golf courses. That's a pretty unique number if you think that probably there's 25,000 golf clubs around the world or golf courses around the world, and so obviously more than that have been built, but it's a pretty small subset.
Yeah, and out of that, there's obviously a lot of his. You think about Allison and Morrison. Mackenzie as well was briefly associated with the firm. When you start to drill down, Colt was obviously involved on hundreds of courses, as you've mentioned. But the courses that he was involved in as new builds, where he designed but also was there overseeing construction, is a very limited number. And the ones that you get early on in his career, when he's come off hitting home runs design wise, whether that was Sunningdale Old, redoing it, making the changes that he made to Willie Park Jr.'s layout, and then going to Stoke Park and Swinley Forest and the Eden course, and then you get to St. George's Hill. The courses that were built during that kind of pre-World War I era, including what he did in Pine Valley, and then the rest of his courses that he traveled to in America on that trip. There's a pretty small group of courses there that kind of fall into that category. And I think knowing that St. George's Hill is one of those, that makes it even more special for us, because as you distill it down, you're right, from tens of thousands to 400, there's literally a handful that you can get into that category now. And the exciting thing is that a lot of what Harry Colt originally designed, it's still there. In fact, the vast majority of it. So so it's absolutely, it's a very exciting project to be a part of. We consider ourselves very, very fortunate to be involved on it. And every time you pull up to those gates, you kind of pinch yourself, because to even have the prospect of winding up there to play is a privilege, but to be able to be working with the club, for the club, in this capacity is it's every dream come true, basically.
I can see that you're beaming, and more power to yourself and the guys. All I can say is best of luck and bon chance.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we look forward to the next steps and seeing where it goes.
I have a thank you to extend to your good self. You've inspired me to be nosy with stuff, and I think the story I'm about to tell. But but between obviously talking to you and Adam Lawrence, who's writing the book on Colt, or has written the book on Colt. In fact, you're peer reviewing the bloody thing at the moment, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously,
that's right. Yeah, so I've got a copy of it. Yeah,
I won't. He hasn't shared one with me, so I don't feel. I feel left out. I don't. I'm joking. So obviously, speaking to yourself and Adam and Stephen Proctor, Roger McStravick, Clates, and indeed everybody else I've had on, I have too much time in my hands, obviously. But I've sort of pulled threads here and there and everywhere else. It's interesting. I've kind of, for some reason, the Royal Dublin story has been in situ for a long time, and people have assumed that different characters were involved, and they were. Don't get me wrong, but there's other characters that perhaps weren't quite as well known. I started pulling things, and it was always the belief was always that Colt had been introduced to Royal Dublin by Anthony Brutus Babington, who was a Northern Irish man who went to Dublin University, or Trinity College as it now is. And certainly he was involved in introducing Colt to the likes of Beaver Park and Royal County Down and Royal Portrush. But interestingly, one of the things that Adam found during his exposition, if you like, on Colt was an obituary that Babington wrote about Colt in 1949 he passed away? Or maybe 51, 40.
Yeah, right around there, yeah. Maybe even to the 50s.
Anyway,
yeah.
so it basically was, but I didn't know Colt from a bar of soap until I was introduced to him by a dude called Cecil Barcroft. So you do a bit more digging. Who's this Barcroft fella? And in fact, he was a barrister from Derry, independently wealthy, which is important for a little bit of the story. And actually, he gets a mention in Darwin's The Golf Courses of the British Isles in 1907 as the on-course designer, essentially tinkering away at the bunkers through the prism of John Low's concerning golf and strategic golf, if you like. So I went sort of digging a bit further, and he was captain of Royal Dublin in 1901, secretary manager between 1902. I'm doing this from memory, so I may get this slightly wrong, but in terms of dates, I think it was 1902 to 1924, 1925. So the assumption was he's a staff member, so he's unimportant. But funnily enough, this staff member was responsible for laying out Carlow originally, before Simpson got his hands on it, and Leighton Bellystown and Enniscorthy and various other places. Anyway, and then Mr. Lawrence Go as well. He also worked with Colt in Evalu18’s in France in 1911. So he's a bloody designer, right, in his own right. Anyway, I suspect, and no proof of this yet, but obviously Colt being a fairly active member of the Oxford and Cambridge Golf Society, and definitively and definitely Barcroft being a member of the Dublin University Golf Club, but subsequently the Dublin University Golf Society. They had their annual match or whatever, so they obviously potentially knew each other from that anyway, at least. Anyway, I was reading the history of the Dublin University Golf Society, and there's a which was written by former RNA captain Gavin Caldwell, and I read about a book that had been presented to Barcroft's widow after he passed away in recognition of his service to Irish golf. Anyway, managed to track down through births, deaths, marriages, general Googling, if you like, the living relatives of Barcroft. And they've presented the book to the golf club, which I actually now have, which I will show to you the next time you're over. And it's basically the who's who of Dublin Society, Irish Golf Society, and there was contribution of £700 at the time, which was a small fortune, in recognition, sort of after Barcroft passed away, which was given to his wife, and she bought a house in Howth. So if you remember playing the 8th hole in Royal Dublin, which CDP, when they have their press release on their website, that's the 8th hole, and Howth Hill is right above it. So turns out that Barcroft's actually more important than perhaps historically we thought. I guess the difference between an opinion and an assumption and evidence.
And that's the type of it's interesting. The Cookie Jar just did their podcast with Simon Haynes, and
the pictures, yeah,
it is so true. Yeah, where there's a difference between just simply researching and taking taking things as you read or on these assumptions, but then doing your own research and questioning things and adding things together and building understanding and trying to look at the big picture and see how they all fit.
that's when you really start to unlock, and that's the type of research you need to do. But that's exciting. It's things like that, where instead of just regurgitating what everybody else has put forward, where you really start to make progress is when you start to uncover new things and you start to build a new picture. So that's to be applauded. That's
but you know what? At least you get paid to do it.
Well, to be quite honest, though, there was quite a few years where it was long. But I guess that's the cool thing is that now we are getting paid a little bit, which is nice. But passion, that's it's a powerful fuel, and I think really that's it does pay dividends in the long run, and we have good circumstances that allow us to do that. But yeah, it's passion is underrated, I think. Sometimes it's worth more given the right opportunities than a lot of other things that people think count for a lot. But no, that's exciting stuff.
Anyway, and look, I've yet to do Babington. He's next on the list, and a former guest, Graham Beat, the head greenkeeper in Portrush, has put me in touch with their archivist. So it is my intention. I don't think he's probably listening, so it may be a surprise. But I'm going to hold off until a few things happen in the golf club to facilitate that in a more meaningful way. But I believe there's an unpublished biography of Babington from the 60s, a family member has. So who knows what's in his papers, if they still exist.
Absolutely, yeah.
Anyway,
yeah.
Moving on from that, just a few more bits and pieces in the news round. I believe the Cashin course at Ballybunion is the members had an e-vote last week, so there was a straight runoff between the Graham Webster and Tom Watson proposal and the competing proposal with the Evergreen, Mackenzie, and Ebert. I believe if we were betting men, we might favour Mr. Watson and Mr. Webster, but who knows? I believe that is due out. The result is going to be released over the coming weeks, so we'll find out more about that. And finally, just in terms of, we will get to some books, but we're doing it front loading it. As I said, Mr. Shackelford's book, actually, just to give him a plug, was released yesterday in terms of public release. So, Golf Architecture for Normal People. I'm very much looking forward to receiving my copy. It sounds fascinating. To add to my pretty significant library of Shaq's past work. Have you had an advanced copy of that? You probably have, you fecker.
I haven't actually. I was actually speaking with him yesterday. Yeah? We were back and forth a little bit. So he was saying that it should be available in the UK around the 17th. Okay. I don't know if that was meant to be off the record.
But it's now on the record, so. Well, as we know from Mr. Shipnock, if it's not said, it's on the record.
That's it. Yeah. So hopefully it doesn't get me in any hot water. But yeah, now I say that. Yeah, no, I think we'll be okay. So just looking through the messages back.
It's on back order anyway. So you can. I mean, it comes when it comes.
That's it. So yeah, no, looking forward to that.
And one other thing I'd like to plug, which is Lawrence Donegan is throwing his toys out the pram in terms of the McKellar. Number 7 is en route to. It's been published. It's been posted in the US, and he's sending over the copies to the interested parties in the UK. I think doesn't Adam Lawrence's crowd do the distribution there? I think Tudor Rose. Anyway, I will put a link in the show notes. There is an offer for the back catalog stuff if people are interested. It really is well worth the 20 quid or whatever it is. A periodical. It's proper writing, old school writing. It isn't cram full of this ball, that ball, and this driver that's going to hit it 700 yards. So I don't endorse things like this. I don't get paid for it, but if something is good, it's well worthwhile mentioning. Have you read much of McKellar?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've actually got some beside me here on the nightstand, along with
Are you lying in
the
bed?
Golfer's Journal Links diary. Well, I wouldn't say lying in bed, but yeah, no, I had
You're swilling cocktails lying in bed. Jesus.
wearing my smoking jacket.
You've got your fedora
Haven't
hat
got
on.
quite that far yet, but it's early. That's right. Yeah, no, it's yeah. So I've got a couple here, but yeah, no, it's one of the better ones. And then even to be quite honest, I think Jeff Shackelford's newsletter, the he gets a free one, but then the paid
Yeah.
one that you get
Quadrilateral,
on
yeah.
Substack is
Mhm.
well worth. Yeah, yeah, really, really good. Especially for the upcoming U.S.
Yeah.
Open. He's done a historical kind of hole by hole biography of
Yeah.
LACC, so that's been really
Yeah.
good. Well worth the subscription just for
Yeah,
that.
for sure. He's a good guy. Good guy. In fact, he's just about to get added to the guest list in terms of chasing. So, I've had Rod on,
Very
I've had
nice.
plates on. It's about time to have a shack on. In fact, I sent him a message. I was trying to get some stuff on Max Baer from some time ago. I must follow that up again. Um, anyway, back to your Annus Mirabilis. Obviously, we finally caught up in person last August. So you might bring us through a magical mystery tour of your trip to Ireland in August 22 with the missus in tow, and you, I think you basically set off to Cavan and base yourself there, if memory serves, or Monaghan maybe, and basically drove. You left your wife alone, pretty much, in Cavan with her sister, was it?
That's it.
And
Yeah, so it's a good base to have.
circumnavigated the island from Cavan, which is the first time I'd heard that particular circumnavigation. But usually they got somebody based themselves on the wild Atlantic Way. You just did it slightly differently, but you are slightly different, to be fair.
Well, yeah. So we've got family over there. So it's my wife's sister
Ah,
and her husband. They live in Cavan, so they've moved there recently. He is Irish, but he's moved back after a spell in England in
ah,
London. So they're not golfers, unfortunately. So when we go over to visit, just to make sure that I don't impose myself, I do take my leave. And yeah, the good thing about Ireland is that, especially from Cavan, is that there's main motorways that run kind of through it. So within an hour or two, you can get to most
through
places,
Cavan.
except for the roads
Where are those
south.
main motorways? I'm aware.
Well, I think the one from Dublin goes. I mean,
That
at the
stops
speed
at
I was
Cavan
going,
town, like.
it seemed like. Yeah, well, to be fair, after you get two Cavans okay from
Hmm,
Dublin, but after
yeah.
that, it does get a bit
Mate,
sketchy.
the very technical term is a
But
shit fest after that.
okay. So yeah, no, we had a good little run. We had I'm gonna say some of these wrong because I always
Hmm.
do. Mulroney,
Mulranny, yeah. Hmm. Hmm.
Mulranny, a little 9-hole golf course, kind of municipal, 20 euro. I
Kenny
think, or
Mayo,
maybe it was
yeah.
15.
That's the sort of stereotypical livestock on the golf course and barbed wire around the greens, yeah.
Summer. Absolutely, yeah. In preparation for this, because it was last year, obviously, I had a couple of notes that I had made and pictures that I put aside. But if you actually look at Google Maps, you can see where the posts are around the greens because they're obviously where the cattle can't get to, or the sheep can't get to. So it's a little bit greener around the greens. But yeah, it was almost like I would describe it as a mini rye.
Okay.
Um, it, it it kind of plays out from the clubhouse in the same type of way, and then up and over a little shoulder of dunes. It's just it's a really charming 9-hole golf course, played the way that golf should be played. Short grass everywhere, due to the livestock, no doubt. Um, just natural contour, and there's not been a lot of shaping, if any. And it's just lie of the land golf, uh, amazing views, especially from the top. You get this amazing view to the south. Yeah, it's just an incredible little golf course. I would quite happily play that golf course over and over and over again, exposed to the elements, depending on which way the wind was blowing. Um, and it would change every day. So I think that was really, really good. I wasn't expecting a whole lot, but I had heard good things. And to be fair, whatever happened during that trip in Ireland for those couple of weeks, whether it was a week or 10 days, I can't remember what I was there. Honestly, I think during that week, the records were broken for like temperature highs because it was balmy. It was sunny. It was dry. Things were baked out. It was absolutely brilliant. I think it was maybe one of the first times that those fairways were browned out. But yeah, there was no rain before or after we were there, and while we were there, it was in mid-20s, which is quite high, from what I hear.
Yeah, it does happen sometimes. Not very often, mind, isn't it?
Yeah, we caught it. So that was good. Mulroney was a real highlight. I would recommend stopping there. I stopped there in the morning on the way. I left really early. Stopped there, played 9 holes quickly. Wanted to go around again, but had to get to Cairn. And Cairn.
Next up, New York.
Yeah, exactly. Cairn. I think the best way I can say what I learned about Cairn was that it did what Trump Aberdeen claims to do. There's dunes there that are without scale. Yeah. Like they're so off the charts that it's hard to really put them in perspective.
It's almost like pyramidal steps. If you can, I mean, that does, for those that haven't been there, that probably doesn't make any sense. But they're almost chiseled with the. I mean, we spoke to Ali McIntosh in the last podcast, and in fact, this is podcast 25, not podcast 24. I've just realised because he was podcast 24. But we spoke to him at Hackett, and obviously his Kilmore 9, which has been integrated into the Wild Atlantic Dunes 9. But you're right. It's they really are some of. I mean, I haven't seen bigger dunes arguably. That Maher McGorgan mountain in St. Patrick's is probably just about as high, but it's kind of it's got a wider base, so it's not quite as arresting.
Yeah, and you play like up and around it. I mean, Cairn is just phenomenal. When you first play it, you can look at some of the bunkers and think that they're a little bit small for the scale of the site. But then you get up to them, and the bunkers themselves are absolutely massive. You know, if they were on any other golf course, you just call them a sand scrape because they're literally that big. But against those dunes, like I don't know how you would, build a bunkers as to make it look, like they could be in scale. But it doesn't need it. The land itself is phenomenal. And in a lot of ways, it's similar. We'll get to this. It's similar to Cape Kidnappers. It's such an extraordinary site that the golf course there can't really be compared to anywhere else, simply because there's really no other land like it that's used for golf. So you just have to accept it for what it is. There are 27 holes there. Obviously, the further east you go or inland you go, the less exciting the land.
It's a little quieter, yeah.
Yeah.
Relatively speaking, it's not quiet at all.
Relatively, yeah. Well, that's the thing. But I mean, once you get down near the Atlantic, and once you get to that coastline, I mean, those holes coming in and around, and especially the last holes coming in up to the clubhouse and away from the clubhouse. I mean, there's just nothing else like it. And I think that's the biggest thing. It has to be experienced. I would say it's not. If I had to play there every week in all weather conditions, there are some times where it would be difficult to play that golf course, especially in high winds, especially with some of the shots that you're asked to hit. But it would never be boring. And I think that's, it's exciting golf, and we had cracking weather for it. It was so good. So I don't think what we enjoyed and what we seen was different than probably what you would see the majority of the time. But the golf gods definitely smiled on us, and Cairn was exquisite. It was a really good experience.
Cool. Well, the one, I mean, I was there obviously when Ali was doing some work last November. I was there helping for a day, and he did say to me, "Do you want to go out and play?" And it was the second day, and I'm just there gone. It's a 4.5-hour drive back to Dublin. I think I wussied out. It was my ass was a bit sore from bouncing up and down on the dumper truck. To be honest with you, from the day before.
Do you know what? I think it was one of the only other golf course. So I had my phone with me, obviously, in my golf bag as I was walking through. The only other golf course that I remember, it was something like 100 flights of stairs that I walked just through the golf course. That was, but it was like the only other one that was like it was Machrihanish Dunes, where you don't really realize it's almost imperceptible how much you're going up and down.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the end of the day, absolutely knackered, 27 holes. And it was simply because, there's just so much elevation change up and down. But yeah, no, exciting nonetheless. So Carn's definitely worth going to, especially to see the Wild Atlantic Dunes is one of a kind.
And the welcome that Fiona and Jerry give you is just off the scale.
Absolutely, yeah. I had the privilege to meet them both after quite a bit of correspondence through COVID and all the rest of it. But yeah, they are great, and they have a passion for everything Carn, and it really shows.
No, for sure.
Yeah, no, they were great.
And you were off to Enniscrone then after that, I assume, because you probably didn't go to Rosapenna before going to Enniscrone.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Enniscrone. So it reminded me a little bit of Sillith, which is an English golf course, just in the sense that it starts off a little bit quiet, and then kind of like jumps into the dunes, and there's just some excellent golf, just what you'd expect in Irish dunes land. And then mid round you kind of come out of it again for a few holes, and then from that 11 to 17 you jump back into it again, and it's inspired golf. It's really exciting stuff. So yeah, Enniscrone was good. It was the day after Carn, so I was still tired because I did 27 at Carn, 9 at Mulroney, and then the next day went back to Enniscrone into
via Cavan.
But yeah, Enniscrone's got
you went back to Cavan.
Yes, which is a bit So you've got to check in with the in-laws and just make sure everything's okay before you escape again. So.
People should just Google Maps that particular trip. It's how many hours were you away? I mean, that's a significant amount of driving on top of 36 holes.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. In hindsight, I should have just. But anyways, yeah, it's you tell the in-laws you'll be back for dinner and you're a little bit late, but there we are. Got to do what you have to do. So yeah, Enniscrone was nice. I didn't pick up any swag there. That logo is just one step.
It's a little bit busy, isn't it?
It is a bit busy, yeah. But no, typical. I mean, Enniscrone, we had a really good. The wife came with me that day, and there's quite a bit of surfing spot. It reminded me a little bit of Lahinch actually, because just beyond the golf course was a bay that the surfers were in.
But funny enough, did you see the island out in the bay? So that's Loch Swilly, if you like, the river that comes out. Okay, and there's an island out in the bay called Bartra Island, which at one point in time Nick Faldo owned. He was going to build, really? And then there was some problem over title, and somebody there were court cases and stuff like that, and nothing ever got built. But there's a scratch TV. Sir Nick flying in by helicopter, and himself and the son. Actually, sorry, beg your pardon. The son was Matthew. His name Matthew Faldo was the son, who was one of the assistant captains when Nick was Ryder Cup captain, along with DJ Spooney. Work that one out. Anyway, moving swiftly on. The amount of rubbish that's in my head. You were then so Enniscrone is worth a trip, yeah.
Yeah, I would say yeah, especially if you can combine it with Mulroney, Carn. That's a good little. It's okay. There's a bit of driving there, but you're kind of in that neighborhood as much as you can be. But those are three courses worth visiting. Mulroney, I think if you're going to Carn, it has to be tacked on. It's kind of on your way, depending on which way you're coming from. And then
not everybody starts in Cavan,
especially that. That's true. That's true. If you start from Dublin, I guess you kind of make it out that way. But yeah, if you're taking in delights of Cavan, then that's a good little loop to do, if you will. Yeah, and it's grown. So yeah, I think 11 to 17. Those holes there, and the 17th little par 3 was devilish, is what I would say. I watched a few groups play through. I just sat on the tee and watched them play. I don't think anyone held the green. That was quite intense. But yeah, nice little hole in.
Okay, and then you were a guest of Mr. Casey's up in the Casey's up in Rosapenna.
That's right. Yeah, that was unbelievable. I mean, Rossapenna is it's a cool place to go. I mean, you do have to make a little bit of an effort to get there, especially if you're traveling from Dublin. I think from Belfast, it's not too bad.
No, the last time I
Um,
was there, I actually, wait, get a load of this. So I have to pick my mate up in Belfast because obviously Belfast is on the way to Donegal. Anyway, so it's 2 hours to Hollywood, where I pick Johnny up. And then it's probably about an hour and 45 minutes from Belfast, or 2 hours from Belfast. Obviously, you
mhm.
drive up over the Glenshane Pass and through Derry, stroke London Derry, whatever you have in yourself. As long as you don't get stuck in Derry with the Apprentice Boys March, which we had the last day, I was dropping them back. So Johnny was Johnny's from that side of the tracks, if you like, nominally. So we're in a Dublin Reg car, and he's roaring out the window at the marchers. I'm just there, wind your neck in, please. I don't want to get a brick through the window. Anyway, nothing happened, but bar a 45-minute wait while PS and I were looking after the march. But so it's about 2 hours from 2 hours from Belfast, probably 350 from Dublin.
Yeah, so I mean, I think if I was flying there from London or coming over from the UK, Belfast would be the place to
But there is one
rather
other
than
alternative
Dublin.
though.
And then it.
The alternative is actually you can fly
Mhm.
from Dublin to Carrickfinn, which is Donegal Airport, and it's about a 45-minute taxi drive from Carrickfinn to Rossapenna, which obviously it's a small ATR 42 or ATR 60, so it's a turboprop, and it only takes 4 or 5 bags. So you got a pre-book.
Mhm. But I mean, no matter what it takes to get there, I
Gotta go.
mean, it's worth going. You have to go. St. Patrick's,
Hmm.
it's off the charts good. There's been some people that, hey, it's a new golf course, debuted at 55, I believe, in the world on golf.com world ranking, which is one that I kind of put most stock in, really, because of the contributors towards it and the way they do things. But yeah, 55 in the world, and it should go up from there. Um, it's it's that good. It is genuinely that good. I think we played it 3 times, and I walked it with John a couple of
Yeah,
times, or at least once, and then partially a second
yeah,
time. Uh, and it just got better each and
yeah,
every time. And what was cool too is that I played it starting out from 1 and then starting from 10, and I think we did that once
hmm.
each. So there was a little bit of golf over a couple of days that we played at St. Patrick's. Um, but there's just highlights after highlights. Um, yeah, it's just a classic old school it, golf course. It sits well amongst Machrihanish and uh, St. Andrew's Old. Um, it's got a little bit more going on than that as far as topography goes and land movement. Um, but it feels elegant. It sits on the land well. There's nothing forced or contrived. It just feels like it's sort of always been there, and it was, despite the fact that it wasn't. Um, yeah, it's just a phenomenal golf
It's
course.
just, I mean, it's a stereotypical light touch when actually you and I have probably a slightly better understanding, having seen some pictures and spoken to Clyde, and there was I'm not going to say a considerable amount done, but there was not insignificant, I suppose, is probably the best description.
Absolutely. And what they did was phenomenal. I mean, there's 2 greens on that course. Well, 3 really.
11,
There's
first of
6.
all.
Yeah, 11, especially the high right side. And I think Tom, I have listened to something that Tom was discussing that on, and he did say that Clyde built that, and then Tom came and seen it.
And he said, "Oh
And
dear."
he was a bit surprised by it, but actually really loved
But there
it.
was grass on it
But I
at
mean,
that stage, so
that
there
was
wasn't
it.
much of a choice.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. It was, it's just one of those things where the yeah, you push the boundaries there, but actually there's no reason why it can't work and shouldn't work, and it actually does work and works really well. So that was exciting to see. Then the sixth, you almost feel like the first time you play it that you're playing it from the wrong angle in. It almost looks like you're playing like to the back of a push-up green. But the more you play it and the more shots you hit into it, I think for me the point there was just visual deception, because you don't think you can hit an aerial shot in there.
Can't, but you can. That's
because you're almost.
There's obviously a big. It's kind of built up at the front, and there's a pimple, if you like, and then you can't really see where you're going. So, but you can certainly. It fools you into thinking that you've got to try and trickle it on, but actually you're better off past the front, and it actually it actually there's a bit of a slope down, but then it actually levels out.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing that, when you read a lot of the Golden Age greats, especially Tom Simpson, he'll talk about visual deception and how you're trying to make the player think, and that the psychological test needs to be as strong as the physical test, the questions that you're asking. I think with that hole, that was one of those light bulb moments where you kind of thought, yeah, like this is good. Not just to this is a good hole, or this is a good green complex, but like all world quality green complex, just from the point of view that it makes you stop and think and really, really wonder about how you want to play that shot. And then you start looking at it and you can actually play it a load of different ways and still come off as successful. So it's not that it's limiting options. It's actually giving you more options than you think, but it's just creating that you just question, even while you're over the ball, after you've made the decision, you're still questioning what you should be doing and why you're doing what you're doing. So yeah, that was I've played that whole multiple in my mind, and I mean, we just dropped balls and literally played shots around that.
As Pete Dye used to say, once he's inside your head, he's winning.
Well, and it is true. That is one green that I keep on coming back to again and again and again. Yeah, it's phenomenal, and I think it's just so out of the ordinary. You don't see anything like that anywhere else. But that's the genius of design build, where they can just be on site. Because if you were to draw that up and hand over your plans to, a subcontractor and just say, well, there's your topographical lines, can you build that, please? Yeah, you'd be hard pressed. But
hard pressed to draw it properly.
Let alone build it and then build it for it to work. So yeah, that's one of those ones where I think 6 to me is it's an amazing, that in itself would be worth driving from Dublin for, just to see that one green. But yeah, 17 green, short par
kicker slope,
freeform tees,
kicker slope.
That's it. So, and you know what, you see that again and again. So I mean, we'll get into this, but being able to see quite a lot of Renaissance's work, new build stuff in various places, and that was one of the things that comes out, especially with TRI North, is it actually that you're aiming away from the green in order to use contours to bring it back into the green, which is a pretty cool concept when it comes to golf course construction and design. But yeah, there's and then finishing off with the 18th. Kind of downhill short par 4.
It's wicked. Actually, wicked hole.
Absolutely, and perfect match play hole. If that was coming down and that was the deciding factor, you could drive it, you could go for it, you could drive it. It wouldn't be that. It's not a massive ask. It's a viable option for most good golfers. But you could literally play any shot you wanted off that tee to set up a second shot.
But I think again,
it's just a really cerebral.
I also think that's one of those holes that you'll oscillate between being aggressive and making a mess of it, and going back to being a pussy and hitting 4-iron off the tee to try and get into a spot, and then you'll make a mess of that, and you go, F it, next time. It just
it's one of those ones where, again, the more you play it, and you're right, each successive time it would actually, the amount of scar tissue that you would build up on that hole. It's just a brilliant finishing hole. And like I say, I played it in reverse as well, starting on 10, and it's just as good reversing the 9s, because the reveal, whether it's the 4th tee where you kind of come around and then you have this massive reveal on 4 where you play along the coastline, or you're playing on 13 where you have the dog leg left down the hill, or sorry, dog leg down the hill.
That's 14. Your reveal is off the 13 green up the hill, onto the 14th tee. Yeah,
That's it. So it's like either way, you kind of have this like you have these holes on the interior of the course, and you know it's coming, and there's like this build to it. Whether you play it, whichever way, it's still really good. And then even the front nine, like the closing holes, six, the green, we go on for that for days. Seven's like a little innocuous hole.
seven's really phenomenal.
Play with the center line bunker. Yeah, it's just like, and again, it's one of those like, yeah, you have this probably 20-foot like dune that goes right in front of the green. That's all quietly, shortly cut grass, with a center line bunker, and quite innocuous, but really difficult to play. It just makes you stop and think. And then eight's a brilliant little hole similar to something you see at Cyprus, and then yeah, it's just it just builds and builds and builds. St. Patrick's is worth any effort to get to.
And just to mention for international visitors, there's a 3 links ticket which includes, so this summer, this is the current pricing. We're talking in the start of June 23, €400 for the there's three links ticket for overseas visitors, and for Golf Ireland members it's 215. So well worth a trip. Actually, a couple of guys from Royal Dublin actually were up there recently, and certainly the one I was talking to, hello John Wisdom, really got it, which I was delighted. But he had obviously done a bit of research and listened to the pod that I did with Frank and Clyde and Ali. But you obviously tacked on Old Tom and Sandy Hills as well. What did you? What was the verdict on those?
Yeah, so Sandy Hills, that's the one anomaly for me. I mean, look, it's
brawny.
It's exactly what it's exactly what you would expect from a course in the 1990s, I guess, built on that type of land. It's difficult. I mean, I played it after the Old Tom. I really like the Old Tom, contrasting nines, but again, I'm a bit of a sucker for Old Tom. Felt to me like an old school Scottish links. That's what it felt like to me, but in Ireland. Yeah. So I mean, that was a hell of a day. I think I played St. Patrick's in the morning, Old Tom in the afternoon, and you almost have the best of Irish links and then the best of Scottish links all on one property. Sandy Hills, because you're on the top of the dunes, I found the greens small. And it was windy. It was really windy that afternoon, so it probably didn't help. But it was a tough test. And as you know now, I play a short set, and I'm not really worried about pencil and scorecard golf. So yeah, to get it around there. The one thing was I ended up joining up with a member who was in his 70s or 80s, and we ended up just both playing off the forward tees and having a laugh. And that was a real highlight. So I actually really enjoyed Sandy Hills, especially because the company was one of the older members that was at the club. But yeah, if I had to choose between if I only had a choice between 2 of the 3, all 3 are worth playing. But I would probably do St. Patrick's first, Old Tom second, and then Sandy Hills, which is different than most of the rankings have been. So I might be going against the grain.
Well, I'm with you on that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love St. Patrick's. I really like Sandy Hills. I've played it in literally sideways rain and 50k an hour winds in the Scratch Cup 2 years, and then I've had it in 27 degrees. So it's chalk and cheese in many ways. It's much easier when there's no wind, but it will beat the life out of you. And it's been softened. It's been softened as well in 2013. Bo Welling obviously opened it up a little bit more. Safe to say, I don't know this for a fact, but I wouldn't be surprised if something happens to it. Obviously, given the fact they now have a little bit more real estate up there and have the opportunity perhaps to close it and do something. I don't know what they might do. I'm not. I don't know something that I've told you, but I'm not telling other people. I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if that might happen.
Yeah, it's phenomenal land. Yeah. It really is. But I think what you again, it's not that it's not good golf. It is.
It's just different.
It's just it's different, and it's different than the other 2 courses. I think that's the thing, and that's quite exciting for a resort where you can go somewhere. You have 54 holes, and you've actually got a few more with the Coast Guard. But you've actually got three very, very different golf courses all on one piece of
And
property.
throw it, and
the setup
remember,
they have is
throw in the
phenomenal.
fact that Port Salon is half an hour away, Critch an hour away.
Mhm.
Like you have Northwest is probably 45 minutes away. You've got what's the place where McGinley's folks are from? Just up the road. Dunfanaghy is like half an hour away. You can throw a blanket over a load of holiday golf or really, really good golf, and you can do everything from Rospenna.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a great base. The hotel they have there is phenomenal. It's good. The little bay. We went out for a swim. That's how good the weather was when we were there. We were spoiled. We literally went out for a swim on the beach.
Well, the beach though, Tramore Beach is just phenomenal.
Yeah, and I don't know how often that happens. I mean, I can imagine in the northwest of Ireland, you don't get many beach days like that. But yeah, phenomenal. It was such a good trip. Yeah, we definitely like to go back.
Did you buy a lottery ticket?
That's one of those ones where, yeah, that would be good, wouldn't it? Yeah,
yeah. That's the one thing you forgot to do.
It's it's well worth it though, and especially if you can get it for what you said, 400 for open season and 215 for phenomenal. I mean that's every golfer should jump on that and go.
I guess just one word to the wise. Accommodation in Ireland is pretty sparse this year, just for various different reasons. I think there's probably availability up in Donegal. It's the one beacon of availability in terms of. And I may be screwing myself by saying this. Get to Donegal if you're coming to Ireland, because there ain't no tee times anywhere else. Well, there's a few in Road Dublin, but I'm definitely screwing myself by saying that.
Yeah, no, top tips, but it is worth going. The golf there is phenomenal. So yeah, even if that was the only course you played, got to St. Patrick's or Rospenna and played those three, you'd be happy. Yeah. But yeah, no, I was quite surprised. St. Patrick's, I think even on some of the UK lists, the UK magazines, they've still got Sandy Hills above Old Tom and even St. Patrick's. Yeah. But I think that should be rectified.
Yeah, well, I guess it depends what you're looking for. Some people have said to me it's Humpty Dumpty golf, and they're entitled to that opinion. I just wouldn't share it. Some people have said it's resorty and you can hit it anywhere. I wouldn't agree with that either, because it's completely different from either side of the fairway, and there's a right place to be and a wrong place to be. And that changes depending on the wind and whatever else. So having played it 7 or 8 times, it's one of those places that rewards repeated play, and you pick up the nuance of the place the more you play it, if you're paying attention.
Yes. Yeah. It's one of those courses, I think, and that's for me, it's the subtlety. Can you play the course over and over and again, and you just fall more and more deeply in love with it. St. Patrick's is one of those places where you could spend the rest of your life playing golf there, and you could be quite happy. Yeah.
Before we move on to the next location, a public service announcement for anybody that might be hungry when they're in Rospenna. One absolutely has to book a table at the Old Glen Bar restaurant. You can stay there as well. There's a good friend of mine that I had up in that general neck of the woods last year. Hello, AT, if you're listening. He is a professional drinker and eater. He works for, so he's the international sales director for the the Torbreck winery in the Barossa, which is, I guess, of a similar bent, if you're like your viticulture, to the range that Penfolds do. Anyway, he said, having traveled widely around the world and obviously eaten much in Ireland, it's the very, very best food he's ever tasted in Ireland. So there's an endorsement. So the Old Glen Bar. It's also got a 1740s pub. I think you couldn't get a booking, but you got lunch there.
That's right. Yeah. So we went. Yeah, we had lunch, and it was well worth. It's a little bit of a too long, 15-20 minutes drive, I think, from Rospenna proper. But well worth going to. It was good. We sat in the back on the picnic tables, and it was well worth going to. But definitely next time we're up there, dinner will be on the menu for sure.
Just want to circle back on 2 particular things that took your particular fancy in relation to just the detail around St. Patrick's. Can you tell us a little bit about the the scorecard that you were beaming about, and also the entrance, which I believe you had a particular remark about too.
Yeah, so I mean, it's little things like that. So I think when you go to a golf club, like there's these cues that give away what's in store, and it's little things that tell those, like if you know kind of scenarios. So I've always found that the best golf clubs, they usually have the smallest signs. So the entrance is nondescript. It's almost like a gravel path with this little stone wall that just has a small sign that says St. Patrick's Links, or even St. Patrick's. I can't remember exactly what I said. Point is, though, that it doesn't scream and shout about what it is, because it doesn't need to. Once you've been and once you get inside, you know everything you need to know. It doesn't have to blow you away at the entrance. So it's almost that, you know, it's comfortable in itself. It doesn't need to scream and shout, and it's just an elegance to it. So yeah, that was one of the things. The size of the sign is directly related for me to the quality of the golf club, and that's true whether it's a World Top 100 course or a little club like Mulroney. And then the other thing was, they had Frank had the what was it? The players' cigarettes kind of postcard printed. And as soon as you see something like that, where he's taken the care and attention to like read,
he's obviously got far too much time in his hands.
It's true, but to me, those are the details that matter.
Of course, they are. Yeah.
I think for golf guys like us, as soon as I've seen that, I'm like, wow, this is going to be special. And then the little scorecards, it's 6 inches from corner to corner. It's got the Stymie marker. It's just simple. There's nothing on there that it doesn't. The heavy craft paper, simple logo. It's all about the golf, but it's just those little details that Frank has got right in presenting the golf club, and then all the associated paraphernalia. It's right on so many levels.
So what you're saying is, with all the travel he's been doing, he's been paying attention.
Indeed, yeah, you can tell. It's just, I like that. It's got its own individuality. It's unique in its own right. But when it comes to doing things properly, they've hit the nail on the head. And it's one of those things for people like us that have been able to see and experience a lot of good golf. It's just nice to see that here. And then again, they don't scream and shout about it, but it's just done in such.
No, they let us scream and shout instead. Absolutely. And it's warranted, warranted and deserved. And look, it won't be for everybody, but go and see it, because it's probably the best site for golf I've ever seen. Yeah, it's there's no doubt it's special, and it's deserving of its spot of where it is, and there's probably a little bit of headroom there to go higher as well. As it grows in and matures and firms up and all that kind of stuff, so settles in. But it's it'll be one that you hear more and more. No, for sure.
St. Patrick's, a special
for
place.
Sure. And I guess we the next location, and don't feel you have to butter this up in any particular way. This is an honest appraisal. Particularly flat site in the centre of Dublin Bay when I hosted you in Royal Dublin for a great day, in fact.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was really, really good. So this was before CDP's work, so the bunker, but it was great because I particularly enjoyed that because we were able to see it before, and hopefully on subsequent quit.
No, you're not allowed back. You're not allowed back.
The difference.
Not a chance.
After that afternoon. But yeah, it was nice because obviously we had the company, and we had the clubhouse tour, and we had all the explanation of what was planned and why it was planned, and the history of the golf course with Hawtree's work, and then CDP's bunkering plan. And you know what it's like. It's not just about the golf. I mean, the golf's important. And at the end of the day, that's why we're there. But golf brings together people, and I think we spent a good day, and we could have went into the wee hours of the
you had to get back to Cavan.
Kept on going. But I had to get back to Cavan, see the in-laws. So it was one of those ones where yeah, it was. It's such a unique
Yeah,
site too. I don't think I've ever played. You know, you kind of have to go across this causeway or this drawbridge of
yeah,
sorts, and then you got those two like massive
yeah.
smokestacks, and then yeah, it's just it's a really interesting site for
Yeah,
golf.
it's in the best. It's
But
in the
yeah,
best. The
really,
best. The
really
best.
good.
Obviously, the bunkers are now open. We did a pod with Frank recently, who was very gracious with his time, explaining the rationale behind X, Y, and Z. So that's episode 23. If anyone's not heard it, it's well worth a listen. But it is now kudos to Alan Hammond and his team, our course manager, in the 34-year relationship with Royal Dublin, on and off. Um, it's in the best condition I've ever seen it. The greens are rolling. They're just unbelievable. Yeah, there's a free sound of excitement every time I get in the green to see just the ball hug the turf. It's as true and smooth as I've ever seen it. And the little poa that's in it is actually sealing, and it doesn't make any difference, which is just crazy.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it was such a it was a really good. I think that's the thing. I was a bit surprised that Royal Dublin didn't get more press
We've
than it
no
does,
views,
because
and
it's
look, if we were to create views, to my mind anyway, uh, the sense of place is low. It's a lowland links. It's there for 200 years. It's not like the Portmarnock site, which is a raised links. Really, in terms of time, it's there thousands of years, and it's on an aquifer, and it's got basalt underneath it. So, fair play to Dara Gary. They can get it clicking like you wouldn't believe. But we're different. We're probably more akin to Royal North Devon, or somewhere flatter. There isn't a lot of topographical change because the British Army flattened all of it.
mm,
During during World War I. So Colt didn't have a huge amount of macro contour to work with. There's a bit of micro contour there that's been put there, but and then we had a lengthening procedure, and more procedures, and now we're back with the spirit of Colt, which is it's phenomenal. So we must get you back over.
yeah, no, I'd love to. That'll be one that I really enjoyed the day. And to be able to see what Frank and Co have done, it'd be interesting to see how it all works and how it blends in with what was existing.
Yeah,
So that was one thing I was curious about, was the bunker
yeah,
plan, and then how you do that with the existing like green contours and things
yeah.
like that. So yeah, looking forward to seeing how they've managed
Yeah,
all
well,
that.
look, open invite. Don't be a stranger. That and you made me sick. You really did make me sick all the way, all through that day, telling me about your upcoming trip. I know you hadn't been home to Canada in a while, but Jesus, you circumnavigate the globe after you went home to Canada.
No, it's true. It's so we've put on a few miles over the winter. So my sister lives in California, so that's a natural spot for good golf. And then we had friends that we had just finished a project with. It went back to New Zealand for
Yeah,
COVID, or what ended up being COVID. So we were able to go see them and use that as a
yeah,
base. And then I've got, again, my wife's family. They've immigrated to Australia, so we've got a place there that we can use as a base. So yes, we've got to see America, New Zealand, and Australia
and am I right?
over the last
Did
winter,
you do
which was
some of the
great.
trip with Joe McDonald, or yeah,
So Joe and I, and along so Joe and I met up in
uh-huh,
Georgia. Um, and
yeah, had some peach,
so
you had some
yeah, we
peaches.
we played a little. Yeah, yeah we met up there and visited two golf
Mhm.
courses, which were really good. One in Atlanta and then one a little bit south and
Yeah,
east,
where'd you go then?
I believe. So yeah, that was a nice little yeah,
Warm up, warm up.
interesting
Yeah.
experience.
Next, don't
So
say
we
too
met
much.
up with
Keep going.
Connor. No, so I would say what we could. I spent a lot of time over the winter looking at some of Mackenzie's greatest golf
Okay.
clubs, which was good.
Yeah.
So whether that was in the United States, from there, my sister lives just north of LA, in Santa Barbara area. So we were able to stay with her,
Mm.
and from there, we got to see a couple of Mackenzie courses, notably Cypress Point, Pasatiempo.
Walk or play?
So Cypress was walk with a couple of local agronomists, and then Pasatiempo, yeah, walk as well, and then a little bit. So I think the majority of this trip was to study and research, more than just tick off the boxes. Sure. But it was industry invites with course managers and agronomists, and basically to see what Mackenzie had built. So I was actually just on the Pasatiempo website, and they're, I think, working through a green and bunker renovation again on the front nine.
Yeah, Jim Urbana's doing that, isn't he?
Okay, I'm not sure exactly who it was, but the green sites as we saw them were the original Mackenzie sites. At that point, they hadn't been touched. And talking with some of the guys that had seen them, obviously with all due respect to Jim, you know, there's nothing like an original Mackenzie. So I wanted to see those before I went. So we got up to see Pasatiempo, Cypress Point, and those two. It's interesting. You know, there's the differences between Pasatiempo and Cypress. So, for example, like 1 in 10 at Pasatiempo and 18T at Cypress. Mackenzie had basically put like these back tees. So you kind of played off this elevated tee on 1 in 10 at Pasatiempo, and then everybody knows about the 18th tee on that outcropping on that rock kind of island. You know, so that's an interesting one where, you know, Mackenzie wasn't, well, he wasn't averse to, you know, pushing the boat out a little bit and doing some, like, you know, really interesting, exciting things. I think the other thing about Cypress that really stood out to me was you know, everybody knows about 15, 16, 17. But to be honest, if anyone walked out there, you could probably find those.
Yeah.
Because as a golfer, you would be able to say, well, it'd be really cool to hit a ball from here to here. And you could probably do it. So we'll try that. You know, 16 famously, like Marion Holland's hitting her, you know, her drive across the water and being able to find a green and saying, look, it's not a par 4, it's a par 3. You know, that was a stroke of genius. You know, most of us probably would have seen that as a short 4. But that being said, too, I think the one thing you don't realize is that when you go out to the left-hand side of 16 is how well it plays as a par 4 or a 2-shot par 3, if you want to call it that. Yeah, it's just it's an all-world hole. But despite all the press that 15, 16, 17 get, and then the naysayers for 18, I think if you look at Mackenzie's original plan for that hole, having the tee back on that rock with the bridge, it's actually the inland holes that really set up. You wouldn't have 15, 16, 17 if you didn't have the inland holes to make it great. So like 2's phenomenal, 3 great little short, par 3, and then you kind of get into these kind of uphill kind of holes that have layers. And Mackenzie did that. Even at Augusta, you know, Mackenzie, a lot of the longer holes were rooted on the uphill parts of the property, so they're not monstrous par 5s. They do play that way, and I think you see that a little bit at Cypress Point as well. So that was a nice takeaway to get, is that if you were on a cramped piece of land, some of the longer holes, if you route them uphill as opposed to downhill, they actually play a lot longer than you would normally otherwise. So it's those little kind of pennies dropping where you walk through and you can see things, because you're not necessarily worried about your own score. But you can spend the day there and just walk the course over and over again, or you can walk up to the green and walk back to the tee. You're not necessarily worried about, you know, how you're playing the hole, but you're looking at options and you're seeing how things are constructed and why they were constructed that way, and trying to get your head wrapped around it. Those are massive learning curves, where you just have to travel and see the best examples of golf course architecture in order to understand golf and understand golf course design and golf course building. But yeah, the takeaways from there, and to even think what he did at Pasatiempo on the back nine with the landforms that were there and the forced carries over the barrancas. It's absolutely amazing. So yeah, they weren't shy in the mid-20s about building bold golf courses. And I think that, with all the modern day advances in technology and ball technology, club technology, all that kind of stuff, we we've actually gotten quite soft in what we expect of our golf course.
In terms of that, I mean, just I probably should have mentioned it in the news round. I'm assuming you saw Adam Scott and Ricky Fowler and all that stuff. Tosh, sorry, did I say that? That came out of the PGA Tour during the week, and the presentation that the RNA and the USGA gave in relation to the ball. They don't really seem to give a crap about anybody other than themselves. It's funny. Clate says in a two-horse race, always back self-interest. I think he's right. It's shocking, in fact, that they are just so selfish that they don't see the wood from the trees and don't actually understand that the window they're talking about is after the Pro V1 came in. So the big game was the first 4 years.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, is that there's such a gulf between the game that they play and the game the rest of us play. It's so massive. I mean, they are in a league of their own. And the way that they see golf is completely different.
It's entitlement, though. Surely it's actually not seeing the wood from the trees. I mean, I was thinking about this. And again, as you know, I have too much time in my hands to think about things like this. But I remember listening to a podcast, and I can't recall if it was the thing about golf that Rod and John Huggan do, or it was definitely an Australian podcast anyway. And they had Nick Price on, and he was speaking about, just immediately post the Pro V1 arriving and Persimmon turning into metal and whatever else. And they played, I guess, the US Open, I think, at Bethpage in 2001. And he was drawing the analogy between Ernie Els' swing and his swing. And maybe it was a little bit earlier than that. Maybe I'm getting the date wrong. But Ernie had an immediate advantage with the ball and the tech, whereas Nick didn't. He couldn't actually reach the fairway he was still driving it the same. Whatever way he swung the club, the tech wasn't working as well for him because he didn't have big levers and couldn't launch it. So Nick gets it, and he's on the bloody USGA, or certainly was in the USGA committee.
Yeah, it's it's a fascinating thing, and I think that's where it's for them. It's very one dimensional. And the golf courses that they're playing often reward length. Can you hit it straight? Can you hit it? And I think that's the other thing too. There's been quite a bit of discussion, I know, in kind of the circle that, if you want to call it the echo chamber that I find myself in.
Me too.
It's not necessarily length, but I think the other thing that's missing a little bit is spin.
Yeah.
So this year, actually, I've gone to I've started playing persimmons again.
Okay.
As part of just my regular.
Well, I saw you're posting like Goodo. I mean, do you have any of those wood brothers are still for sale, are they?
Yeah, so I've got.
Would you like to lend me one or two?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I'm just refinishing the 693s now. So those are the McGregors from the 50s. I've got an M85.
You're a fiend. You're a fiend. You need to get onto Ross Baker down in Australia. Did you meet him when you were down there?
Ross.
He's just opened the shop in.
I seen that. Yeah. That'll definitely be on the
Well, you and me both, yeah. Or Sandy Jemison has a garage full of stuff as well, which he's promised me a route. No, that's the wrong word to use in Australians. He's promised me a rubbish. Oh dear. At least that's staying in. That was an inadvertent faux pas, but it actually worked out quite well.
Yeah. You've just earned yourself the E for explicit in on the Australia web. So yeah, no, it's once you go to Persimmons, and you get that feeling again of being able to, not that I can, but I attempt to like work the ball left and right, high and low, even where you're thinking about teeing the ball. The other day I figured out again, like, I'm going to tee it lower and hit a little fade. And I was like, yeah, I haven't even thought about that, because at the moment you just tee it high and try and swing at it as hard as you can. And everything just goes straight or a little bit right, and you kind of think, well, it's But again, that's the type of golf that, I don't know. I'm not a PGA Tour player, but it seems like that's the type of golf, and that's how they see it. It's with the artistry in golf has been lost. And look, I was on the tail end of that. I started playing golf in the '90s, late '80s, early '90s as a young lad. Didn't really get it. But imagine in the '70s and '80s when all these like true artists were at their prime, like the Sevies of the day, doing what they were doing. The best I can do is try and watch YouTube videos and try and get my head wrapped around it. But yeah, and the tail end of like Balata's moving into professionals and then the Pro V1s. When I was playing golf properly, it's just the end of the professional and then the beginning of the Pro V1 era. So even a lot of that had passed me by. But going back to it now, playing persimmons again, that's the term is proper golf, I guess. It's interesting. I went out with the persimmons the other night on at St. George's Hill, and the sixth hole is kind of like a downhill par four.
Is this your new playground?
But it's a long par four.
This is your new playground with a sense of it.
Well, it's research.
But you live nowhere near there.
No, I don't. Yeah, I'm about an hour away on a good run. So I'll try and combine a little bit of work with a little bit of pleasure, if you will. But it's interesting. I hit driver forward and two really solid shots, and I made it just on the front of the green. Where if I was playing modern kit, it would have been driver 7 iron, maybe 6 iron. So yeah, just a different game. Yeah, exciting stuff though. But yeah, anyways, we digress.
We do. Well, we'd say we would. So look, it's a function of the format today. But it's so much easier because obviously we've spoken quite a bit. So it's as I said, I do have the motivation to record all of our conversations. Unfortunately, this is only the second one, but I guarantee that the content of the rest of them is pretty much the same. Listen, you were off to Australia then to put right or wrong that you'd not. You've been there before, haven't you?
So first time to Australia. I'd never been there before. We had family that moved out there on my wife's side, probably about 8 years ago, and then we were going to get out there in 2019. That was curtailed due to COVID. So we're going to go winter 2019, 2020, and then that all fell through. Anyways, the point being that landed, got to met up with Paul Daly. What a kind man. Absolutely brilliant. Thoroughly enjoyed the day. Went down to the National and played Gunamata, which was
he's a member there, isn't he?
He is, yeah. And yeah, I think they have the Muna, the National, and Gunamata. I think is the three.
And they have one. They won somewhere else.
That's right. Yeah, they're working on that, or it's just coming on. It's being redeveloped. But
that's beside PK, isn't it?
I don't know exactly where it is, but I think it is. It's not on that site. I think it's closer to Melbourne.
Frankston, I think it is.
Yeah. So that was really, really good. Really enjoyed that. It was my first Australian golf experience, and to have that with Paul. I mean,
and Gunamata was the first course. It's funny because my first experience of Melbourne golf was the Muna course actually.
Okay. So yeah, so both down there it was in Mornington Peninsula, I think they call it. So yeah, really good. Obviously got the chat about the snakes and don't go in the grass, but there's only been one, all the rest of it. But don't worry, there's only been one snake bite in the last 20 years or whatever it is. So I think when you first land there, you're a little bit
course sharp, but like
you realize there's nothing.
There's funny stuff everywhere, but there's more funny stuff there.
Absolutely.
But if it's kind of it doesn't want to talk to you, so just leave it alone.
No. Exactly. I don't think we saw anything. Anyways,
whatever you do, don't do what a pal of mine, Jared Quinn, did in the vintage many, many moons ago. Went running after a black red belly snake that was slithering across the fairway, goading the second thing. So that's not great.
No, I definitely wouldn't do that. I don't think I'm scared of snakes growing up in Canada. In Saskatchewan, we had snakes, quite a few of them. But yeah, no, you wouldn't necessarily go running after them. But so that was good. That was before. They've obviously made changes to
17 and 18,
17 green, and then move the first green. So next time we go back, we'll have to see that. But that was an interesting golf course. I mean, I think the thing I took away from there was the green sites. Effectively, like the green sites could have been massive, and it's just where you wanted to mow the actual green site. But the aprons and it was how short do you want it, and when does it actually become putting green? So that was quite good. There was no noticeable difference between the existing contours outside of the green and internally, and that was kind of the point that I took away from
But
there.
again, obviously it was a reworking of Thompson and Woolridge, I think. And from listening to Tom, a lot of work was done to rub out a lot of what they put in to make it look like it was never there in the first place.
That's it, and I think some of it was kept.
Yeah.
There was quite an impressive bunker, I believe, on the front nine. It's on the right hand side of one of the holes. I can't remember which one it is, but that was one of the ones that I thought was really really good. And then ended up texting it, I think, to Clyde and saying, "No, this is really really good. I like what you did there." And he said, "Oh, I think that was one of the ones we kept from the previous previous fellas. So I don't think they really did anything to it, but I guess that's part of the skill is not necessarily throwing the baby out with the bathwater. If there is good stuff there to be kept, then you would keep it, and then see if you can use it. So, but yeah, that was a good introduction to Australian golf. Kind of thought if this is how it starts, then it's going to be exciting.
And then you got to the main event, as it were, to a certain degree in terms of quality and quantity, and actually, was it RM West next, or was it KH next?
Yeah. So then we were at so I think it was Victoria, and I ended up spending 2 or 3 days there.
Did you stay there?
So I never stayed. We had a place. I forget the neighborhood it was called now, but it was it was a pretty funky little neighborhood down right near the beach in Melbourne. So again, had a little commute, but because my wife was with me, she was going to watch the tennis, and I was going to play golf, and then we meet up in the evening.
So St. Kilda or Brighton, or
that's what it was. St. Kilda, St. Kilda, yeah. Really, really cool neighborhood. Well worth staying there. Really funky little eateries, and
Melbourne's cool.
Get everything you wanted there. Yeah, it was an excellent. Again, it was like really cool London, but with better weather. It's basically what it was, and the golf was as good as
and prettier looking people.
I think so. Yeah, the tans help. I think so. Yeah, not the pasty white skin, but yeah. Anyways, the so it was off to Victoria. Victoria was really really good. I think the one thing I took away from Victoria was everything is rectangular. So if you look at a lot of the sites where the golf courses are situated in the Sandbelt, it must have been laid out in the grid system, because you do get a lot of rectangular sites, and the holes at Victoria are routed originally kind of from the clubhouse down towards the first boundary, and then it kind of goes around the edge of the boundary before going in. And you would think that that would mean that those holes were not as exciting as the rest, but they weren't. It's excellent golf, and you don't think the site moves a whole lot, but there's enough there to make it interesting. And the bunkering, again, just because of the sand type they can make bunkers that have really sharp edges, and the way that they present them and mow up the short grass.
It's physics defying almost.
It's and again, the only way you can really appreciate it is to go and see it. Some of the holes there, I think for me the fourth hole on the front, so the first par 3, I think it's 4 threes on Victoria. Par 3s, 1-shot holes, and they're all really really good. So those were the ones that stood out for me. And then the 15th was a short par 4, kind of up and over a hog's back. So I think overall, if I was to say like Australia golf for me, the short par 4s, the Australians do the short par 4s.
Right answer.
Amazingly well.
And actually, they feel as I had obviously I had a cocking on a while back, and I sort of said to him, like, can you ever have too many short 4s on a golf course? He goes, no. So in fact, Aussies would feel disappointed if there wasn't at least 1 or 2. But just conditioned to having it, because it's that go on, have a go if you think you're hard enough, and that typifies the Aussie attitude, if you like.
Yeah, and I think what I like, I mean, the first, I think it's the 4th of Victoria, the first par 3. There's a little collection area on the front of that green site. It just blows your mind. It's a little it's almost like a really really small punch bowl that will collect anything that is
slightly short and left. But anything other than that, like you're in these crazy bunkers. You just got a wall of sand in front of you. Literally, it's if you were to pigeonhole it into what you would explain as strategic, penal, or heroic, it's somewhere between penal and heroic. But it's absolutely brilliant. The Victoria was phenomenal. The welcome you get, Canadian flag up there. I'm not emotional, especially about being Canadian, but it was a little bit emotional coming up like 18 and you see the flag waving in the distance.
For sure.
It's yeah, and I'm not even that type of a guy, but it was those little details that really set it off, and they were absolutely brilliant. They treated me really, really well. Got to spend a couple of days with some members. Then we come back for Members Day, which was really, really nice. Walked the course, I think, a couple of times. Yeah, Victoria was phenomenal.
Yeah, they do. They really do welcomes really well, because I guess they have propensity to travel, and they're used to being welcomed or otherwise elsewhere. So
yeah, and they just reciprocate on the way, and that was true whether that was Victoria, Royal Melbourne, Kingston Heath, Yarra Yarra, New South Wales. Yeah, you were, it's probably overused, but in Australia, I felt like you were a member for the day. Kingston Heath, again, brilliant company. I would say that was probably the golf course that was the most similar to what you would find in Surrey, Berkshire, in and around London. It is a proper heathland. And I think that for me, especially with what we were doing, it was during that week, I think we found out that we got to work at St. George's Hill. But that was quite good because it kind of allowed you to see what was possible on a heathland. And although it's a really compact site, that every square inch is used and used to the full, especially with that new short course. Kingston Heath is phenomenal. I don't know if there's much in it between, say, Kingston Heath, New South Wales, and Victoria. I think there's a gap between. Again, I haven't seen Metropolitan. Yarra Yarra was really, really good. I mean, that would be an ideal members club. If you could be there as a member, that would be phenomenal.
The Slannic Renaissance or Renaissance, as they say, whatever the latest appropriate. You've become anglicized, which is nice to see. Although your pronunciation of that other place, what were you calling it? Sankport, yeah, surely.
Yeah, Sankport, yeah, Sankport.
Anyway,
Sankport.
Digress.
Deal.
There we go.
Yeah, Yarra Yarra. I think the 10th hole there, and again, it's just a short par 4 with no bunkers around the greens, but it just shows you what you can do if you're clever about the green site. It's almost like an upturned saucer, like a policeman's helmet type. Green site. But that was one of the standout holes, not just at Yarra Yarra, but literally in Australia or even on the whole trip. That one, you get out there, and I guess that's why, Yarra Yarra you would go to see anyways. But there's things there that you would, you benefit by going to see those types of things, and how bold those courses are, and how they don't need to be watered down to make them palatable. So a lot of people call it unfair or too difficult, but 10th at Yarra Yarra was a standout on the entire trip, even considering all the good golf that we had seen. But Royal Melbourne West, I don't think there's another golf course. I haven't seen another golf course like it. Whether you compare the old course to it, or Muirfield to it, or your Augustas, your Cypress Points, any of those top 10 golf courses in the world, if you want to call them that. Royal Melbourne is just it's elite. I would say that and the old course for me are the two courses that, they, for whatever it is there, and I've thought about it a lot, whatever it is that they do well.
People should copy it.
Those courses are not of their own. Yeah, it's like, if you could bottle
they do say, Ram Morris reckons, and obviously having played all over the place, and bumping as he lived down there, and obviously played in Newcastle for a while, and would visit Blackrock, where Royal Melbourne is, and speak to members who were gagging to go and play someplace in Georgia. And he goes, oh, what do you want to do that for? Royal Melbourne is the golf course that Augusta wants to be. You know, it's pretty much like they're. I unfortunately, when I was there, it was just after the President's Cup. It was closed, and didn't get to see it. But that's the good thing. I have that to look forward to, and 7 Mile Beach when I go back down. And to be fair, you have quite a few missions. I mean, you didn't get to Bonnie Doon, you didn't get to Newcastle,
Nope.
You didn't play the East at RM, you didn't get to Tasmania either. Nope. No Royal Adelaide,
no,
and you didn't get to speak to Mike Clayton. Jesus.
I know, and it was such a shame. So Mike and I actually had a round at St Andrews Beach lined up, and we'd been talking through the week, and that, you know, as you'd expect, their summer, our winter, there was a bit of a heat wave, and I think it was like 42 the day that we had planned to go out, and he just said, "Look, if you want to come down and just drink beers,
and sit in the terrace in the shade." Fine, yeah, absolutely.
That's it, yeah. But to actually go out and golf, and then because of other bits and pieces, it just made sense to not make the trek down to the Mornington Peninsula on that day.
I'm not going to ask what the other stuff was, but to me, I'm sure it was important, and I'm sure she appreciated whatever it was that you did. But that just would never make sense.
No, it was different, you know, afternoon with Mike, or stay in the city with the better half. Yeah. I don't know if I made the right decision, but I think it was right on. Yeah, you can't really.
But the good news is he's due over to Europe in July, and he'll definitely be in your neck of the woods. So you may get an opportunity to reprise. He may be in my neck of the woods as well. He's just not quite so sure. If he's not, Jesus, I may have to jump on the plane and come over and have pints with you.
Absolutely, yeah, I love that. So it'd be interesting to see. But I mean, I think to be quite honest, with all the golf that I've seen and played, Royal Melbourne West, it has to be to the top of the list of the not only the best but also my favorite. There's just something so elegant about it. I mean, the fifth is an amazing par 3, similar to 16 at Past Tempo with that green, and you can see elements of the sit well there with Mackenzie. Yeah. Is it which one is it? The 10th, the short par 4 up the hill, bunker on the left, just amazing. The 8th, the crazy bunker on the left hand side, and you have to challenge it in order to get the angle into the green. And then the way that the 4 holes across the road are rooted in a really awkward piece of land. And I love the fact that he left the elements of the Victorian kind of golf course penal architecture just as like I think it's on 15.
Yeah.
And there's like this kind of strip you have to play over, and he kind of says like, we're gonna leave it there just as a reminder of like how bad the Victorian wood was.
That's right. The old furrows have isn't it? It's mad. It's mad. But like, I mean, you know, no surprise. I mean, no surprise. I mean, you hear people, obviously, I'm not wax lyrical is a word that's used quite literally a lot on Cookie Jar. I was struggling to find some other explanation, but wax lyrical is going to be. Thanks, Tom. So you do hear them, but we'll go on about Royal Melbourne West. I mean, New South Wales is obviously worth an honourable mention.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, those holes 5, 6, and 7 down on. I mean, the oceanfront holes are absolutely world class. 13 to 17. I think when I was there, Tom and Martin were going to be over, I think, a month or a month and a half later, something like that. So we're interested to see what they come up with as far as, you know, redevelopment there or whatever they're going to do. But yeah, I mean, we hit the big ones, and I think that was the thing. Talking to some of the guys that are based down that way, when you get, you know, you've got to see him play Victoria, Royal Melbourne, Kingston Heath, New South Wales. Those are kind of if you're a bucket list picker, you kind of take them off. Yeah. But now there's a load of great golf that you want to get back to. It's almost like saying, well, I played Sunningdale, Old and New, and Swinley. Yeah. Like, I guess I've done London. And you're like, no, you haven't even scratched London yet. You know, and that's kind of what.
But you know, it's funny. I had a mate, actually that mate I was down with in Adelaide back in 2020, and he's coming over to the UK in next year, and he wanted to do obviously not great at geography of the UK. Sorry, AT again. Anyway, Royal St George's, Sankport, and Princess. And then he goes, and then we'll drive to Cornwall. And they're going, well, I'm doing the driving, and we ain't doing that. First of all, because we're going to Rye, and then we're going north. And he goes, oh, well, why? Can we not do South Wales? No, we're not doing that either. We'll do that some other time, but I'm not driving 6 hours across the country to go and play somewhere that you have a reciprocal. I've got contacts in most places, so let's just use my contacts.
Yeah, and to be honest, if you're going that way, so Prince's sandwich deal, Rye is amazing. Absolutely love it. The other one that you could tack on is the short course at North Foreland, which is a Simpson Fowler.
Okay.
And I don't think there's any holes longer than 100 yards. 18 of them on just I think 15,
I don't know if he'd
land.
get it. I mean, I then mentioned Woking, and he goes, yeah, played it. It's okay. And you're there going,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Maybe steer clear then of North Foreland short course. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Simpson and Fowler, we're doing some pretty wacky stuff there. It's all there in the ground. It hasn't been restored, but if you have an afternoon and you want a few beers and 2 or 3 clubs in your hand, that's a good one.
Okay, cool. So obviously, your last neck of the woods was some modern stuff, actually, pretty much, with one obvious exception. So you went out to the land of the Great White Cloud, or Aotearoa, as they call it down there. What a wonderful place! I mean, just as a contrast, you know, Australia's so bloody big. You're going to travel so far to see some contrast. You know, you can be on the beach and you can be skiing within 45 minutes over there. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, so New Zealand, again, first time over there, reminded me a little bit of the Lower Mainland, the west coast of Canada, so Vancouver.
Okay.
It's a similar thing. You've got the seaside, and then you got the mountains beside it. But the golf was a lot better than you find in Vancouver.
Okay.
So you've got TRI, which is the 2 new courses.
Yeah.
So TRI North and South. The South is open, which is a Coore and Crenshaw design. That was my first Coore and Crenshaw that I have played. And it didn't disappoint. That was really, really good. And I think what I took away from there was just it's just quirky.
Yeah.
And quirky's okay.
Of course it is.
Some really interesting, and I think we get it when we play like kind of backwoods golf courses in Scotland and Ireland, and you kind of think, yeah, okay, well, this is out in the middle of nowhere out in the sticks. Quirky's kind of cool, and they probably didn't know any better. But then you get to a brand new build by one of the world's best, and it is quirky, and it is bold, and you think, actually, why?
But it endorses that this is actually okay, as opposed to they made a mistake, or they didn't have this, that, and the other, and this is why they did it. But actually, they actually did it on purpose back in the day as well.
And and there's just that spirit of adventure that you can see coming through in the way that they're designing golf courses. If there's a natural landform, why put the green there, and why wouldn't that work? And
as you know, I'm going away to the Netherlands on Sunday, and I'm playing Royal Hague, and obviously I've listened to the Cookie Jar Lads' podcasts. I only did it once because I don't want to know too much, and the member in Nordvik that I'm playing with has already said I'm not going to tell you anything, so I'm not until afterwards. But actually, Royal Hague sounds like it's going to be a wild experience. So I'm really hoping that the GM sorts me out with a member to actually wind me up and point me in the right direction, because I could be screwed.
Yeah, and that's what I took away from that, was that we expect it with these old courses, because you kind of think maybe they didn't know any better, and it's just the quirks of being an old golf course. But actually, it's and again too, I think the other thing I took away from that one was that there's a bit of visual deception. So the natural line that you would pick off the tee wasn't necessarily the playing line that you'd want to pick.
Okay.
So but absolutely phenomenal. The views from the course, it's a stunning location. New Zealand as a whole, you can't really go anywhere where it's not stunning and aching and beautiful. But then to play golf in some of these locales, you just couldn't ask for anything better. And then you have obviously the private course that's closed to most.
You do have that one-time shot at it if you can cough for. Is it 24 hours basically? You have pretty much, and it's like it's a certain. Obviously, you got to write a nice letter and whatever else, and
I think there's ways and means to get onto it. I mean, they were really good when I visited. obviously they let me see the south, and then
Well, you kind of know the guys. You kind of know the guys that built it, so you know. You have a certain leg up that others may not have. So
the inside track. But yeah, that was a really cool experience. The thing about Tariki, I think that maybe unless you're properly a golf geek, is that it's pure fescue, and it's not necessarily where you would typically grow that type of a turf. But it's phenomenal to see. To see 100% pure fescue golf course is great. And then to be able to do it in those conditions and exceed at it, not just keep it, surviving, but absolutely
just shows you what's possible. But I mean, where to be fair, where money and there's not a lot of people playing it, so therefore there's not a lot of wear. So it actually, it's not a normal golf situation in that sort of environment. Just to say,
exactly. Yeah, and it probably isn't the pattern that you would use at a municipal play, where you have 60,000 rounds a year going through, and obviously not. But what I would say is that they're on the back nine at Tariti is very similar, I found, to St. Patrick's actually. From like 13, 14, you kind of do a slow rise up and over the dune, and then there's this big reveal, and it kind of does the same thing. So there was some parallels. And I think I found that interesting, seeing some of these differences. You can see that they've taken the cues from one golf course to another, or perhaps learned lessons on one and worked really, really well. And well, we've got a certain landform there. Why don't we use that again? I guess, I mean, I don't know. I've not spoken to Tom to know that level of intricacy. But you can see some parallels between those two sites, and then also how they tackled the routing and how they fit holes into it. So that was pretty good. And then being able to, I went out and cut pins on the day with the course manager.
Nice.
So we got to put all the greens and cut the pins in. So that was a bit of a.
If I didn't know any better, I would think you're preparing yourself to project manage St. George's Hill. How's that going to work out? I mean, are you prepared?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in a former life, with regards to project management or change management, whatever you want to call it, that's that's kind of up our. It's
just a list. It's just a series of lists, though, isn't it? Really, and ticking it off.
Spreadsheets.
Exactly.
Spreadsheets,
It's a sequence and shit, we're behind.
And making sure that we can get things done, and we've allocated enough time and resources and all the rest of it. It's a balancing act, but it's no, it's going to be exciting. But then the real eye opener for me was TRI North, and again, I'll have to just watch how much I say, because I don't think there's been a lot.
Say nothing. TRI North is not open yet. When's it open? When's it due up?
I think it's open later this year.
And to do preview plays, or it's going to be a public facility. I mean, TRI is public.
I think it's public. Yeah. I think TAR80's
not public.
It's obviously private and exclusive. And I think trending more in that direction, where I think TRI North and South will be basically just open for whoever wants to pay to play. What I would say about that, though, is that they definitely have a contrast between what you would see at TRI with the open sand scrapes and dunes, and then like these running grasses, and then what you see at TRI North. And I think that's a cool thing, because the sites themselves aren't. They're a couple of miles apart, if that even.
And it was the same people, the same people that did it. So it just shows you that actually there isn't a style if you don't want there to be a style, or a calling card, or whatever.
And that's what I took away from it too. Is the temptation would be, hey, we played an absolute blinder. It's literally a couple miles down the same coast. Like, why don't we just do the same thing again? But to have not done that is pretty phenomenal. But yeah, it's width, I would say, was a big thing. One of the takeaways. I mean, there's some holes out there where if you played across the fairway, it could be a driving range. It's just massively wide. And then some of the green sites are incredible, bold, really, really bold. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what the reception is like, because you'll naturally get that compare between. You have one of the greatest modern day links built at Tariki, and then literally next door you're going to have these two new builds by two of the greatest contemporary golf course architects of our day, in Tom and Bill Coor. So naturally, you're going to have a lot of comparisons and contrasting, but it'll just be interesting to see how that all plays out and what the takeaways are and what the final, like how does it actually come out in the wash.
Sure. And then
that's really interesting to see how that
and then interesting too. Obviously, I've played Kidnappers, so I'm a leg up. None of the three courses you mentioned heretofore in your Kiwi adventure were even a smidgen of an idea in somebody's head when I was down there. But Kidnappers, I did play. Are they still asking you to stop after 9 holes for lunch?
So they didn't officially ask me, but I certainly did.
I think that's de rigueur. I think it's a I mean, the wonderful thing about Kidnappers, first of all, is the driveway. Tell us about the driveway.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, because you kind of enter the site like down almost at sea level. And again, it's one of those ones where it's almost like a cattle garden, a gate, and like you kind of like.
But it's an operational. It is an operational farm, like.
Yeah, it's you as you kind of go through, you're driving for like 15 minutes, and you're thinking like, did I miss?
13. If memory serves, it's 13K long, the driveway.
Yeah, it's, you just kind of, when are we going to get to the golf course? You definitely. I think on Google Maps, like where it said the entrance was, you kind of think, well, once I'm there, I'm there. But no, I'm sure they have a few people late for their tea time.
Yes. And did you come? Did you stay in Napier and make your way down there? Or yeah,
yes.
Okay. So obviously you got to pass through Hastings on the way, and that's where the wine, the Gimlet Gravels and all that stuff. So if you like your red wine, get the hell to Cape Kidnappers, because you are going to hit wine and a golfing adventure.
It was 2 weeks of probably, I mean, if you were to judge it simply on like overall quality of golf, wine, food, and lodging, you'd be hard pressed to beat New Zealand. We were introduced to the degustation, which is like their version of the tasting menus. Sure. So there's a winery there called Craigie Ranch that we did grow particularly fond of, and there one particular vintage called Sophia.
So much so it was a problem, was it? Or a challenge?
Definitely had maybe a marked influence on a couple of things.
Withdrawal symptoms afterwards,
that were put away. But no, it was phenomenal. I mean, and the wine and the food. And the lodging was as good as the golf. Total package on all accounts. Cape Kidnappers, again, it's similar to Cairn. Like, people say, what are your thoughts on Cape Kidnappers? And you think, well, you'll never get another golf course like it. It's that the landforms are so special and so unique that the fact that it could even get golf on there was an amazing feat. And then the fact that it is even playable. Angela, I think, just finished redoing some of the greens, and it was amazing that even with those cliff top holes, it was still very, very playable, especially on the fingers. So Cape Kidnappers is well worth going to see, because there's only one golf course in the world like Cape Kidnappers, and that's the only one, because it's really the only golf course built on land like that. But it is world class. It's really, really good. But that whole area was worth going to. So to see Tariti, TRI North, TRI South, Cape Kidnappers. We still got lots to go back for. The South Island, we went down for a week, and then that was basically just wineries in the Otago Valley.
You found your Pinot. You kind of found Pinot Noir heaven.
Absolutely.
That's why. Did you bump into Mike Goldstein?
I didn't. No. But we got to play Arrowtown, which was really good. And what the fellow that we were with, our friends there, they're not big golfers, but he came out and played Arrowtown and absolutely enjoyed it. The front nine at Arrowtown is phenomenal, with the rock outcroppings and all that kind of stuff. It was another little highlight of the trip. Could you ever compare it to the other 4 that we played in New Zealand? No. But as far as just tier exciting golf. Again, it's up the same, it's in the same line as the Ionas in Scotland and your tries. It's just great golf.
And then of course, for the next dip, you've left Paraparaumu, Tilarangi. In fact, there's Waverley, but there's a really cool course actually beside Wellington Airport that the airport property keeps eating. So it over the years it's got smaller and smaller and smaller. And for the life of me, Miramar is the name of the place. But actually, it's quite linksy. I loved it. It's a bit tight in places, but it opens out a bit, and there's a couple of short fours, and it's fun golf. That's definitely well worth a look as well. Literally, it's as I said, it joins Wellington Airport and it's been eaten for car park space. So
we did notice that as soon as we flew in, as soon as we landed, there was one there. But no, I would say Australia, again, in and around Melbourne, there's loads to see there. I mean, there's probably 20 or 30 other courses that you could go and enjoy just as much. And then once you get down to Tasmania, New Zealand, same thing. You've got Paraparaumu, like you said, Titirangi, Waverley, definitely ones you have to go see.
Yeah.
But again, I guess that's the beautiful thing about not all doing it in one go, is that you have to go back to take those off, and hopefully, you never know, maybe this winter we'll be able to get to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Mr. Miners, it has been a pleasure as always catching up with you. I have a feeling that you might be back on. If I keep this thing going, you might be back on for a third dip. You need to come over and see Frank and Hendrik and Dara Golf's work at Royal Dublin. In fact, anybody that's out there that hasn't seen it, please come. Not necessarily as my guest, because I'm quite busy actually hosting people at the moment, but if you reach out, you never know what might happen. I seem to be doing a bit of that as well, but happy to do a little bit of it. I do have a full-time job too, so please just go easy on me. Until the next time, my friend.
Yeah, really good. Thanks for having me.
No problem.
It's you always wonder how long we could go on for. I'm sure
we could go along, and it looks like I might actually get to the golf club. A little bit late, mind. I might not get there for the trophy handover, but I suspect the boys will be there for a while now. It's unfortunately strokes qualifying tomorrow, so I haven't played well this week due to lack of sleep. I am hitting the ball quite well, so if I have too many points, I definitely won't play well. So there might be one or two, and toast to success, and hopefully, maybe, you never know, I call up the Walker Cup. But and actually, one person I didn't mention earlier on was Paul Rouse, who I did the podcast on the evolution of golf in Ireland. I actually played with him yesterday at Royal Dublin. He has been one of the inspirations as well to start pulling threads in relation to history. So you never know what I'll have uncovered by the time we speak next.
No, I look forward to it.
No problem, mate. Listen, thanks for your time as always.
Hey, thanks.
No hassles. That was super. Many thanks for tuning in. As usual, you can find us online at firmandfast.golf or on Twitter at firmandfastgolf. Please continue to like, subscribe, and comment. It really is appreciated. Until the next time, happy golfing.